I talk a lot about my yoga journey and the somatic work that really helped to change me. That was one of the keys in my journey, was using the inquiry of asking what was being stored in my body. So the pain from when my mother would hit me because she was angry for some reason, and then understanding like where that pain was in my body, going into it and like, oh God, here it is, and then reliving it and then letting it go. And then that was how yoga helped me. At first I did it because Madonna was doing it, and it was like, oh, it's really good for you, and it was like offered at my school at acting conservatory, and so it was this like physical thing. All of a sudden I started having these like emotional meltdowns at the end of class out of the blue, but it wasn't out of the blue until I understood the science of it later. I would be at the end of class, you know, in Shavasana, and you're laying there, and then I would just have these flashbacks to these really traumatic times in my life, and then I would just start crying. It's not like I was sad at the time. I'm like, it just finished yoga. I should be like really relieved. But my body wanted to cry. I wanted to purge and to release. And then that happened less and less because my body was cleansing, because I thought I had processed all of this emotional hurt and anguish, but it was all through my mind. It was not at all done physically. And so I needed my body needed the time to catch up. I used to have a tutor who, he hit me in the back of my neck, like right here, because my parents allowed him to. He said, okay, if he misbehaves, just school him, like, you know, in rural China, just beat him. Even though it wasn't like, you know, he'd beat me up, like after school beat me up. It was just like a flick, you know, of the rule, and that happened a lot. So I would always flinch. And this muscle memory was there. And I remember I was in this somatic movement class called Alexander Technique, and my teacher was helping me to bring awareness into my neck. She was just holding my neck. And she was asking me to become aware of feeling here. And I had numbed myself to the fact that I had a neck. I was like, I don't have a neck. I'm just like a head with thoughts walking around in the world. I completely disconnected from the fact that I had anything down here. And so when she touched that, and then I felt a release into her hands, my whole body melted back, and I finally let go. And then I just started crying. And I'm like, why am I crying, Gwen? My teacher was Gwen. She goes, I don't know. She's like, she didn't know my story. But then afterwards, the answers came. I was like, oh, I'm crying because, you know, all the times that I was hit here, and I shouldn't have had that experience as a child. And then all these thoughts came afterwards. And so the body has this interesting way of storing information. And so if we have like certain physical tightnesses or things in our body that are chronic and they repeat, it's a sign of something that has to be looked at on a deeper emotional level. I don't talk about epigenetics because I'm not a neuroscientist or a researcher, but in new science, epigenetics shows that our genes not only store, you know, biological data, but that it carries information on behavior and emotional patterns that have come from like our grandparents. So whatever your grandparents ate, however they chose to express their feelings or to repress their feelings, they store that in their body. It passes down to your parents, and then it passes down onto you. And there's this cycle. I discovered when I was doing like massage therapy and body work, my father would have pain on his right shoulder. And when the communists would tie him up and like beat him in the town square, they would pull him like this, right? And so there was this pain, this knot in his shoulder, when he can't really reach his right arm. I can't really reach my right hand up to touch my shoulder blades, but my left one I can lift all the way up. And so I didn't realize until I was working on him that he had that same thing. And I realized it was like the same shape in the right shoulder's forward. He had the same ache that I have. And that imprint of pain that happened during his time, right, kind of passed down into my time. And I don't know my grandparents because they died before I was born, but his father was also subjective to violence. And the shoulder in Chinese medicine is responsible for grief. So there's this sense of holding on to a story. And my father is very much that way. He's the kind of person who would hold on to grudges. And he would hold on to his victim story of like, oh, the communists, I hate the communists, they hurt my family, and and he won't ever let go of it, right? And so he holds on to all this burden and responsibility on his shoulders. That program's imprinted into me through him. And so a lot of my work in my life is like having to focus on letting go of people who have wronged me or people who trigger me. And so it may be different things for each and every one of us, but we all have something like that in our physical body. Yesterday I was at a Tibetan bowl workshop. We had a guest facilitator come into our studio, and there was a woman, she had an issue with her left ovary. And it wasn't anything that she knew about. She didn't go to the gynae and the gynae said, oh, hey, you have an issue. She was just walking around, She met this Tibetan bowl person who's really attuned to frequencies, and they play these different bowls and they see how the bowl will resonate a certain frequency, and if it doesn't sound a certain way, it would bounce off your body and come back to her ear in a certain tune that she can pick up because she's trained that way. And so wherever the sound is not resonating, she says, okay, you have an issue in your left ovary. I don't know what it is, but the sound is not traveling as clearly there. She goes to the gynae says, you have some weird fluid in your left ovary, and then she has to get it sorted out. And so vibration, sound, all these things that we can't see, all the waves are floating through the air, all of this stuff is not very visible or tangible to us on a daily basis, but it happens. You know, you walk into a room and someone is just angry or complaining, or you can feel that if someone comes into a room and they're full of rage. If someone comes into a room and they need a hug and they look like they're about to burst into tears, we can feel that energy being emitted off of their bodies, and that affects our fields. And so there's a lot of stuff that gets stored physically, energetically, emotionally, mentally, and it's just following us around, and we just are not as conscious of it. Like in Pilates class, you know, you guys come to Pilates and it's like very physical, but what happens in Pilates class when you know, or even in yoga class, when you start to see spines move in a certain way, the body is not allowed to move in certain ways until there's more, you know, emotional freedom in certain areas. For example, in Singapore, I noticed that women are very disconnected to their pelvis, to their womb, you know, because sexuality in Singapore is very repressed. So even just like mobilizing your pelvis, it's like, it looks very sensual and sexual, but because the culture here is very much like that's wrong, 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 wrong. So then your hips become, you do this to yourself. And so then women are like that here, culturally, collectively. You see that also in men. Men are like, oh, I'm supposed to be like this. So they walk around and their shoulders are, you know, I'm supposed to present in a certain way. And then so then the shoulders become locked, and then there's like all this neck stuff. And then everyone's walking around like, you know, with a stiff torso. So there's all these belief systems that happen consciously and unconsciously in our society that gets imprinted in our posture and the way that we walk. And then as we become more fluid and we don't really care, you know, if you feel like going like this and gesturing like this when you talk, because that's just how you feel like your language wants to come across, that's allowing your energy to flow. You know, a lot of times people are just talking like this, and it's just all talking head. And so the hi Christine, hi. So that's something. Hi Andrea, how's it going? So that's something that I am really passionate about, is how the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the energetic, all of that is connected and intertwined.